All right, hey there, and welcome to this episode where we are going to talk about the question, what do my intrusive thoughts mean? And so, real quick, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Matt Codde, and I'm the founder of Restored Minds and the creator of the AAA Response. And I wanted to give you guys a heads up that in light of this intrusive thought episode, we are going to be actually hosting an intrusive thoughts workshop. It's going to be live on Zoom. It's going to be at the end of August. And so, be sure to make sure you claim your spot if this is something that you experience, or something that you're struggling with, because on the workshop, I'm going to go into various types of intrusive thoughts, as well as really what you need to be doing, and then open up for some Q&A at the end. So it should be a cool event. I'm really excited about it. It's going to be at the end of August. We still haven't set an official date, but it will be in the last week, probably 29th through the 31st, give or take. So, make sure to claim your seat and make sure you're on our email list just to get the updates of all the details. Also, if you are a listener or a watcher of the show, we'd really appreciate your support by liking and subscribing. It takes 2 seconds, and it just helps the algorithm of the show, and it helps us get this information to more people. So with that said, let's go ahead and dive into the episode today. So, big part OCD and anxiety is intrusive thoughts. Now, the issue often comes where, people experience an intrusive thought, and one of the things that actually gets them stuck is this endless pursuit of trying to figure out what they mean, do they mean something, and why am I having them? So I thought it important to kind of just talk about that question for a bit, because it's a very common stuck point. Now, so let's go ahead and define intrusive thoughts and really what we're talking about in the context of OCD and anxiety. So, on certain polls that have been taken, right, it's something like 95% of people admit that they have intrusive thoughts from time to time, meaning thoughts that pop into their mind that they don't want. And then 5% of the people on that poll lie about not having them, right? And so I think it's a very common experience. And it's a joke, by the way. They made it. I don't know if they lied, but my point is everyone I've talked to, has admitted at some point in their life having some type of intrusive thought popping in their mind. So, the experience of an intrusive thought is not an indication of a disorder. I would also actually argue it's a very normal experience. And one of the things we're looking for with intrusive thoughts is, does the person identify them as ego-dystonic or ego-syntonic? Now, ego-syntonic means that the thoughts align with your self-concept. And by their very definition, the person would never experience them as intrusive thoughts because they align with their self-concept and their wants, right? Ego-dystonic is an indication that the person experiences certain thoughts that don't align with their self-concept or who they know themselves to be. So this is why the intrusive thoughts tend to take on very taboo topics, right? Could be intrusive, harmful thoughts, violent thoughts, especially violence towards, like a violent image towards a loved one or someone you care about, your child, animals. And again, this is very clear that these people don't have any kind of history of acting violently. They don't want to act violently, any of that. It's an intrusive thought. It's ego-dystonic, right? I want to make that extraordinarily clear, because if these violent thoughts are ego-syntonic, that is, something that this video is not about. And if it's something that you're watching this and that's what you experience, then I would definitely recommend you seek out help with a mental health professional in your area. So when it comes to the ego-dystonic thoughts that one identifies as intrusive, again, they don't have any kind of history of any behavior aligned with these thoughts. So they take on, again, like I said, harmful, intrusive sexual thoughts. This could be, thoughts about one's sexual orientation. It could be intrusive thoughts towards family members. It could be intrusive thoughts towards animals, right? Towards Jesus or other religious figures, right? So these kind of like just thoughts that pop into the person's mind, and again, not a reflection of what they desire and what they want. And then also there's intrusive thoughts that are more existential and more religious oriented. So could be blasphemous thoughts towards God, what if I say something, right? Blurt out words, all that kind of stuff. And they tend to fall, really cross-culturally is what I've seen, into these very specific categories. And so what generally happens is because these thoughts are a relatively normal experience, meaning that the majority of human beings experience some kind of like a thought like this that fall into one of those categories from time to time in their life. What happens with people with OCD and anxiety is they get very latched on to figuring out why they had these thoughts. And the assumption is if I could figure out why I had this thought or what this thought means, then I would be able to resolve it and not have it. So generally the thought is so disturbing because the person recognizes it's such an opposite thought of what they want that it generally causes a lot of anxiety, a lot of distress, and very, very disruptive to the individual, especially with OCD. So there tends to be an overreaction to just the experience of the thought. And then this want to figure out why I had it. Now, this generally leads to the person going into talk therapy and talking about it and talking about it and talking about it on the endless loop and usually getting nowhere, right? It's very likely if you've been listening or watching this that, you're hoping that I'm going to give you that answer. Like, why? Tell me why I have this. And that's okay that you're pursuing that. But what I'm here to tell you is that is you're heading down a rabbit hole that has no end, because this is part of the issue is that why do I have intrusive thoughts? Part of it is that is the problem why you have them is because you're engaging in this mental compulsion that's indirectly feeding this loop. And at the end of the day, what causes them to happen, I don't know that anyone has a direct answer for that. Right. There's theories on it, right? Like the thought suppression theory of, the white bear and the unwanted thoughts, right? The book by Daniel Wagner in the 80s. So just trying not to think about something has this ironic process where you purposely think about it. So if I told you don't think of a white bear, the white bear pops up. Right. It's also, if you're experiencing a lot of emotion tends to create random thoughts in the mind. So during high periods of stress and anxiety or stress in life, intrusive thoughts tend to pop up more. And it's really about understanding that the intrusive thought itself isn't the actual problem, nor is why you are experiencing it, because what the real problem is the loop. And the paradox of this question is that by pursuing this question, you're feeding the loop. And the more you're trying to figure out why, as opposed to really doing what you need to be doing, the more you're going to experience the thoughts. And this is just a trap that people fall in. And I wanted to talk about it on this episode because I think it's so important to bring that up. And even if there is someone who's explaining the why and you get this perfect answer, the issue is it will never be enough because there's always a doubt that follows that answer. And what happens is as you stay stuck in this loop, the more you stay stuck in that loop, the smaller and smaller your life becomes. And we know that that's the problem with OCD and anxiety, right? Is that as the loop grows, your life gets smaller and more controlled, and ultimately you're not living how you really want to live and deserve to live. So the point of this episode was, yes, to talk about this question and really what to do with it, right? And realize that the question itself is part of the problem. And I think it's so important that we understand that, because as long as you're in pursuit of that answer and you're trying to solve the content of the mind, you're never going to win. I've never met someone who has outthought the OCD and anxiety loop, who has gone down the rabbit hole so deep that they came up and figured everything out. And when we understand intrusive thoughts are actually a normal part of the human experience, and that by cultivating awareness and consciousness, we can observe thoughts as they come up and we attribute meaning to them or not. And we can literally do whatever we want with thoughts when they pop up. But it's the reality is trying not to have certain thoughts pop up and figure out why they're there if we don't like them. is the problem itself. And that's, so I wanted to talk about that in this episode and really shine a light on that, because I feel like that's where a lot of people get stuck. So I hope this was helpful. It may not be the exact answer you were looking for when you first started this episode, but my hope is by contextualizing it correctly, it will really help you get the results that you're actually looking for. And so with all that said, thank you for hanging out today. I hope this episode was helpful, and I look forward to seeing you on the next show. Hey there. So if you enjoyed that video, we've linked up a few more videos that we think you'd find helpful as well. And if you have found this helpful, we'd really appreciate your support by liking and subscribing. And if you're looking for help and guidance, please check out restoredminds.com, as we have several options for you to get started. See you guys soon.